Some of you may remember that in addition to owning Scriptor Publishing Group, I am also a certified personal trainer. My expertise, actually my passion, is corrective exercise and postural alignment. And although that may sound a little bit dry to you, it actually fascinates me. I actually even gave a TEDx talk on postural alignment. It was called Stand Up Straight and Other Great Advice from Our Mothers. It was really about the importance of posture and especially its connection to pain. And that is exactly what you're going to learn about in today's episode. Today I have Grace Lambert, the best-selling author of How Did I Not Know About This? Becoming Pain-Free Through Posture Therapy. This book is a compilation of all kinds of inspiring stories from posture therapists and their clients who have all had incredible experiences of becoming pain-free, simply by doing very basic movements to help them into better alignment. If you are someone who experiences pain, low back pain, aches in your hips or knees or neck, or you know someone who does, then you are really going to enjoy this episode. Grace shares her insights on why we have pain. And she also shares some very basic tips and tools that you can use. You can actually do these starting even today. And they will help you find better alignment and ultimately feel less pain. I think you're going to learn a lot from this conversation. So I invite you to sit back and listen in as Grace Lambert shares her story. Hello, Grace. Welcome to It Just Takes One.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you.
It's so nice to see you on this end of your book project where you actually have the book published and ready for the world to read. But you and I have had the opportunity to work together from the beginning of the process when you were still thinking about what were you going to put in this book and how is it going to be organized and all those very initial steps. So I've had the opportunity to get to know you over the past several months, and I'm excited to share some of that journey with our listeners today. So welcome.
Thank you.
Let's just start with letting people know exactly how we connected. You were actually referred to us by somebody that had published a book with us before.
Yes, my colleague Travis Parrott, he's exercise therapy of Kansas City, and he wrote a book called Pain-Free Life. And I talked to him about the idea of writing a book about posture therapists and their stories. And he suggested that I contact Scriptor Publishing Group and find out if you guys could help me. And I'm really glad I did.
Yes, me too. It's been a pleasure. And I was really excited the first time we even spoke about your book because this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart as well. In fact, while I was getting ready, I pulled over, I had it on the desk behind me, but this is the picture of me doing my talk at TEDx Utica when I did a talk on standing tall and posture and how important it is.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for this conversation, and I know the listeners are going to actually learn some things from what you're going to share with them today. So let's talk about this book that has to do with posture. The book is titled, How Did I Not Know About This? And the subtitle is Becoming Pain-Free Through Posture Therapy. And I'm curious, just to begin with, what made you call the book, How Did I Not Know About This?
I think because many of my colleagues use that question as they told their story to me and many of my clients have said the same thing. When a person is in pain, and they've tried all kinds of different therapies with mixed results, but usually temporary. And then they come in and they do posture therapy, and maybe they've been in pain for a long time, and they do a few simple exercises and their pain is relieved. They get kind of incredulous and they look at the therapist and say, how did I not know about this? And that's exactly how they say it. How did I not know about this? And so even though the title seemed a little, iffy, I thought I just that's how we hear that phrase, and so I wanted to title it that way.
Absolutely. And anybody who has ever had the experience of learning about posture therapy and getting a chance to use it and try some of the exercises that go along with it will absolutely say that question. I'm so interested to share a little bit about how you came upon posture therapy and how you found your way into this field.
Um, I was in pain. I had chronic pain for many years. I was very active and athletic. I got injured a lot. I had surgery on my both shoulders. Um, and I tried lots of different therapies. Many of them were very helpful, but nothing kept me out of pain, kind of on a long-term basis, So I'm not. I was working in a physical therapist's office, and he had a client who brought in the book Pain Free by ptx-licensnesd, and I read that book and I thought, this sounds awesome. And I ended up connecting with Matt Whitehead out of he's in Oregon. His business is Oregon Exercise Therapy. And I did online posture therapy with him for over a year before I met him. But the very first session he gave me some simple, well, they were challenging exercises, but they were simple. And I felt remarkably different. And I could tell this was going to be a good thing. And so I did therapy with him. If I keep doing my exercises, I stay out of pain. And I thought, I had been a personal trainer, and I had a lot of clients who were in pain. Even though they worked out and they lifted weights and we did all these things, they still had chronic shoulder pain or knee pain or back pain. And so I decided to become a posture alignment specialist, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Excellent, excellent. And I have to imagine that as some of the listeners are hearing that story, they're nodding their heads because they may be in pain or may be experiencing chronic pain of some sort, or had a car accident and haven't been able to get out of pain since then, or hip issues and knee issues and all the things that we hear. And so I'm sure their interest is increasing as they hear you say, oh, there's something that can work to get you out of those kinds of pain that doesn't necessarily mean going under the knife.
Right. And I wrote this book to inspire and motivate them. These stories are inspiring stories from my colleagues, most of whom were in pain, had car wrecks and stuff like you just mentioned, and found relief. It's not that you do posture therapy and then you never have to do it again and you're pain-free. It's that these are tools. It's like an arsenal you have, this toolbox of exercises that help relieve pain in your own body. It's awesome.
It is awesome. And it feels miraculous when you go through it. Let's talk a little bit. Your book is laid out in a beautiful format, and it's got part 1, part 2, and part 3. And part 1 dives into a little bit about why these things happen, why we get into pain, and what are the causes of that. So let's share a little bit about that before we get to the space that people might want to hear, which is what's the solution? Let's talk about the problem first and really dive in a little bit deeper into why we are in pain. Share a little bit about what you have discovered in your work about why we are encountering so much pain.
Okay. ptx-licensnesd describes it really well in his books, Pain Free and the Vygotsky Method of Health Through Motion. But essentially, we're bipedal creatures that are designed or evolved to walk upright. And when our load-bearing joints, the shoulders, the hips, the knees, and the ankles, are aligned vertically and horizontally, all the muscles, the length, tension relationships of the muscles are generally correct. and the muscles are capable of working well, just being fully functional. And that's the goal of posture therapy, is to return our body to that alignment as much as possible. When we get out of alignment, then the joints start to kind of wear on each other incorrectly. The muscles are not in their proper, it's called length tension relationship. And you can get muscle soreness, or more easily get muscle tears or problems with that. And so that's the goal of posture therapy, is to just help your body get your muscles to function correctly, to bring the joints back into alignment so that your body's in alignment and functioning correctly.
And something that has always fascinated me is, it makes sense, if you're in alignment, things stand up straight and work the correct way, the way they were made to work. And when we start to lean, I always said it was kind of like the column on the building. If it starts to lean, eventually it's going to collapse some way, and something's got to compensate to keep it from collapsing. And that's what's happening. But the thing that has always fascinated me is that we get out of alignment and become very unaware of that we don't even recognize that we're not that nice straight column with all those load-bearing joints, fully upright and aligned. What's your experience with that? And what's your thought on why we become so kind of oblivious to it happening?
That's a great question, and it goes along with the title. How did I not know about this? So when we get, like in my session with Matt, the first session, and all of us posture therapists takes photos and we show them to the clients, and a very common response is, I had no idea I looked like that. Like Katie describes in her story, I look like I forget what it's called, the figurehead on a boat that's leaning forward, but it had to do with all her work as a massage therapist and leaning over a bicycle and all these things. So I think a lot of it has to do with our culture and how we sit a lot, and our flexor muscles, the muscles primarily engaged in the front of our body, are engaged in bringing the joints closer together, and we hunch over, and it's just, we all do it, and it's common, and so those muscles kind of get shortened and tighter, and pretty soon we're in bad shape because we're hunched over like that. And I don't think when you look in the mirror, unless you're thinking about what do I look like, we're just so used to seeing what we look like. And, you might notice that your shoulders drooping, but you just think it's normal wear and tear, average. It's just the way we are, but it doesn't have to be that way. And we don't know that until we do. Someone tells us.
I always told people, once you see it, you can't not see it. So as soon as you see that photo and you recognize it, it's hard to not see that anymore. And maybe even just that little bit of awareness and seeing it begins to make you try to do some things to get yourself upright naturally.
Yeah. And this work, it just gives you tools to not only get yourself upright, but keep yourself upright. Because if you just sit, try to stand up straight and hold that, and your deep muscles, core muscles, are not strong enough, I'm talking the really deep ones, then you're just not going to be able to hold yourself in the right position. And so by doing these exercises, you train those muscles, they get stronger, they straighten your body, and it becomes easier and the default. So for example, I don't have perfect posture, but if I sit like this for just a few minutes, my body's like, oh, come on, enough. My body just says that's uncomfortable, so I sit up.
Yeah. In fact, while you were talking, I was actually a few minutes ago realizing, because you feel it as soon as you start to collapse, the pain, ache, something, you feel it. When you're actually in good posture, you don't feel any of that.
Yeah.
Once your body has been trained to it, like you said, once the muscles are ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just slouching, there's almost a sense of fatigue that comes along with that too, So this makes me feel tired compared to this, which makes me feel ready to get up and do something.
And that actually, you talk about that in the book in a really nice way about how posture, such an elemental thing that most of us haven't thought about since our mother used to tell us to sit up straight, right? Affects everything. It affects all the systems in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So you were describing it sort of, kind of makes you tired. What are some of the other things that posture impacts?
Well, the breathing is like super, super important. Obviously, it's the that we need to do. If we can't breathe, we're dead.
There's no option there.
Right. And it's really common and easy to breathe up our chest. So we're just filling the top portion of our lungs, not even filling them. Breathing shallow. We're not using our diaphragm muscle, which is also a core muscle. It helps keep us strong and upright. And so when you're flexed over, hunched over like this, and I had a great diagram photo that you helped me get you're just collapsing all the channels for the oxygen to get into your bloodstream and to expel the carbon dioxide and waste products. So, and then that's of course going to influence everything else. And then your digestive organs are all squished in there. And so people who have digestive issues, no matter what they are, really benefit from posture therapy because it just opens all that up and helps things move along better. And then the circulation system, blood circulation. There are people who have neuropathy. They've been told they have neuropathy, and you do posture therapy with them in some short amount of time sometimes. Oh my goodness, I can feel my foot again. They don't really, the neuropathy just goes away because the whole body circulation is improved.
It's amazing.
And then of course the lymph system is impacted by that. It doesn't have its own pump the same way. So anything you can do to get your muscles contracting and moving and your whole body moving is going to help your lymph fluid circulate better.
Yeah, it is sort of that domino effect, right? One thing just suddenly just continues on in so many different aspects. And again, something that people don't associate at all if they haven't come across a posture therapist who has been able to teach them some of this. And I think that kind of brings up another point, because in our medical system, we don't often hear about posture. What's your experience with that? And what are your thoughts on where the medical field is in this topic?
I think the primary difference is that the posture therapies, the posture therapists have been trained to look at the whole body, the position of the whole body. And the medical field primarily looks at the parts. And of course, that's going to be, a surgeon's going to operate on the knee because the knee is the problem. And then the physical therapist who's dealing with the patient who's had surgery on their knee or even before the surgery is looking at the knee. The knee's the problem. And they're not looking at the things that might have caused the knee to become a problem too. And so I think that's the primary difference between the two. And my experience is that I went through, like I said, a lot of different injuries, and my surgeries, like my right shoulder surgery was quite extensive. I had lots of therapy beforehand. I dislocated it 12 times before I finally even went to a doctor. And I had surgery, and then I went through many months of physical therapy and 9 months of you're not supposed to do anything. And after physical therapy, when I went to my doctor, I was a rock climber and I wanted to regain as much range of motion as I could. And so when I came back to him and said, look, you can't see, but I can externally rotate, almost as far. And he was horrified. He said, I I put a screw in there to prevent you from doing that because that's what dislocates your shoulder and you shouldn't have that range of motion. Oh, so, but I went to, when I went to Matt and worked with Matt, I just got so much, my whole body got straighter, I got stronger, and I could do handstands on my shoulder. I don't, knock on wood, I don't really worry about it dislocating. If I keep myself straight and strong, it shouldn't, I mean, unless I get hit by something.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that answered all your
Yeah,
questions.
well, it's so interesting. I do think, certainly it's something that I'm fascinated with. So I know people that are posture therapists, and have read and followed Pete Egoscue for a long time. And so I see more and more people, but I also know it's because it's an interest of mine. I see more and more people recognizing that there is this method of getting us out of pain that can be really effective, not exclusive, because there are certainly times when the medical field needs to step in. There are certainly plenty of times when that is important. But my thought is more and more people are recognizing that this is a valid option and a great set of tools, as you described, to get yourself feeling better.
Right.
Do you think
That's why I wrote the book.
There we go. Exactly. And now with your book, more and more people will know.
Hopefully.
Do you find that? Do you find that more and more people are recognizing this field as a very important piece of the puzzle?
I'm meeting a few more people who have heard of it, but I mean, even in my community, people who I live in a kind of a senior area, and people have been through all kinds of therapies. And even though I've been in business for over a year doing this, they still don't necessarily know about it. And so I am really hoping that this book spreads it far and wide, worldwide, because it is a game changer. It really is.
Yeah, I agree. So part one really describes a lot of what we just discussed, the problem and why this is happening and what is actually going on that's creating the pain. Part two is so enjoyable. And it is this set of stories of people who have had experience with posture therapy and what it's done for them. I want to, as we kind of talk about that section, I want to bring in the group that you actually belong to, the Posture Alliance, which helped to spur your idea to write the book. Tell a little bit about the Posture Alliance and why they were such an instrumental piece to writing this book and sharing these stories.
So it's really just a forum, but it's all of us are posture therapists. All of us are Egoscue affiliates. Many of us use ePete software, but some of us use ptx therapy software. And we are just an invaluable resource to each other. So when we have a challenging client, we can write to the forum and say, hey, this is my client's situation. I need help with this. And people with more experience, like Matt and Travis and David Smith, they have 20, 30 years experience, and they've worked with all kinds of clients that some of us haven't yet had to deal with. So they can really help us, help our clients more quickly than we might otherwise. They also, many of us teach small workshops so that we might talk about scoliosis and bring in case studies and stuff like that. Recommend books and even other therapies that people can pursue after they're straighter and stronger. So, we're not the be all end all in exercise by any means, but once a person is straighter and feels stronger, what do they like to do? And so we say, well, like Lisa Decker's a gal who shared her story, and she does foundation training as well, and among other things. And so her client Jake talks about his experience with the therapy, posture therapy with her, and then he does foundation training. So the group is just an invaluable resource. Everyone in it is super compassionate and kind and caring. It's why they're in this business, you know, to help other people. So I was so happy to find that group. You know, we don't advertise or anything, but the posture therapists who find it are all really happy to have. It's like a support system for them, especially when they're getting started, you know?
Yeah, yes, exactly. And to be able to pull on the experience of others. And then when you have the experience to be able to share it with others, that collaboration is so invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
And was part of the inspiration for writing the book because you were hearing all of these stories and sharing all of these stories, which made you excited to want to share those with other people.
Right. I was reading, I say yet another, because people write about a client who is wheelchair bound and now is walking, or was wheel, things like that. And I wrote on the forum, more people need to know about this. Somebody needs to write a book. And of course, everybody's, but it wasn't happening. So I said, okay, I'm writing a book. Who wants to share their story? And boom. And more people shared stories than I was able to get in the book. And I just feel grateful to all of them. Some of their stories moved me to tears. What people have gone through over years and years of just being disabled or just in so much pain for so long, you know, and to have found this and be able to now be offering it to others. It's a blessing.
Yes, it is. And I know it had to be hard to choose which stories because there are so many of them. And you did a beautiful job of choosing some different stories. So people that were athletes, runners, massage therapists, and then everyday people who had experience with pain and then came to posture therapy and found relief.
Mhm.
Which, I mean, if you could pick any of them, but share one or two of those stories, maybe, so that the listeners can hear really what happens to people when they find posture therapy.
Well, I think in a way, Nicole's story is probably the most dramatic because she was disabled and on disability, and she had her pain. Um, she wasn't in an accident or anything. She just developed knee pain from a dance class and trying to put her feet straight. Her body wasn't really ready for that. Um, so her story, and it's filled with all the things that she went through in the process, and she couldn't even pick up a piece of paper or put a paperclip on a sheaf of paper. And of course, I started with the fact that it was her knees, but it ended up her neck was affected, so it affected her ability to grip her hands. She was a mess. And when she found posture therapy, you know, it just transformed her life. And now she offers therapy to other people and is dancing again and is enjoying her life immensely. Deb was in a car wreck and had neck pain. She was a single mother of 2 young kids, and she would just go to work, do the best she could, have to sleep in her car at lunchtime or lay down and sometimes cry because she was in so much pain. Come home, try to put food on the table and take care of her little kids, and then go to bed because it was the only way she got relief. Even now, it wasn't really good relief. Oh, you know, for months and years. So when she found posture therapy, she found it on her own through going to the library, finding books, trying Pete's work on her own. It did not bring her instant relief. And she's still not 100% pain free, but very close. And so her story was really very moving as well. Katie's story, what I love most about Katie's story is how and it's part of the reason I put it first, she teaches as she writes about her. She writes about her, talks about her story, and then provides a lot of teaching within her own story, and covers a lot of territory, including the fact that she had to have hip surgery after doing posture therapy for a long time, quite a while, and improving greatly. And she went into the surgery. Her body was physically well prepared for it. And within a very short time, she was walking again and is doing really well. So her story is they're all moving to me.
All so moving. I remember as you're talking about them, I'm remembering them as I read through them. And I remember Katie's when she had the hip surgery, and then when she came back out, she was off the walker within days or weeks, or very
24 hours. She ditched the walker.
24 hours. There you go, because she was prepared and her body knew now how to incorporate that new joint into alignment so that
she knew what she was allowed to do after the surgery for a certain period, what she could and couldn't do, and she knew what exercises she could do, posture therapy exercises, to help her body heal and maintain straightness. Yeah. And then I have to say, my client Cynthia, her story's inspiring to me because she's just was such an athlete. She did fencing, did bicycle riding, and all kinds of stuff prior to all that, even as a young person. And she's a classical Pilates instructor, but she has this deep-seated feeling of being twisted, and she still has it some. But posture therapy has really helped her shift and feel the changes very slowly coming about in her, the deep front line and the fascia. And she's just really benefiting from her work, her committed work to this therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for the listeners, these are just scratching the surface of the story. So make sure you take the time and read through them, because they're fascinating because it's so transformative, Grace, right? It's when you're in pain, your life stops. It's consuming, especially chronic pain or very intense pain, right? Everything, you can't focus on anything else. And so when you find a way to get out of pain, and sometimes within minutes, you can feel no pain. It is transformative.
Yeah. Patrick he had this severe back pain, and his roommate put him in static back, which is just laying on your back with your knees on a block, your lower legs on this block and upper legs here and your body's here. And all his pain went away, and he was at a high level of pain, and all his pain went away. And he's like, what is this magic? Yeah.
It is like magic. It really is. And again, sometimes I don't think we recognize that the pain that we're feeling could be improved by just lining ourselves up. And when it does, it changes our life. It literally changes our life. It can bring life back. It can bring you back to life that
make you feel like you can do things again. And so you become energized to do the things you love, even if it's just like putting your own groceries away instead of having to have somebody else do that for you, and cooking your own meals and just going for a walk.
Yeah. I can remember one of the stories. I can't remember which person it was, but when she emptied her dishwasher for the first time.
That was Nicole. She took a picture of it. Yeah.
And just, if you're not in pain, it seems so simple. When you're in pain and it's preventing you from doing something that basic, that your life has really shut down. And if we can get you back to being able to clean out your dishwasher, and then that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And not have to be on pain medications.
Yeah, that's the other.
And suffer the ill effects of that. Yeah. And that's not to say that posture therapy is a cure-all, or that you don't take pain medications if you need it. But with posture therapy, you just don't need it as often, or maybe at all. It's just,
And there's no risk to getting better posture. There's not a risk involved in it. It's really simple.
Right.
And go ahead.
Well, and that's what the therapists are there to help you with, to learn how to do the exercises in the correct form, to know which ones you can do safely in the beginning, and gradually you can do more and more challenging ones. Yeah, in the beginning, you just do what you can. And gravity is very important in our work. We use the force of gravity to help us realign people's bodies.
It's a perfect segue into part 3. Tell a little bit more about that. How do you use gravity?
Well, gravity is a force that's playing on us all the time. I mean, it's so if you imagine this force bearing down on our body, and you imagine you're in bad posture, the force is still bearing down on your body. It's not like it's changing in any way. So if I look at being, essentially upright, gravity it's good for your body. It helps build your bones. You have a dynamic relationship with it. But if I start slouching like this and my head weighs so much, let's say 8 pounds, 10 pounds, when I'm upright like this and I start going like this, gravity's still a force on this, and it's weighing more and more because it's like the lever out there, and it starts stressing all my muscles to hold that weight up. And so by getting the body realigned, gravity becomes our friend again. It's not going to hurt us. And so all the exercises, there are some very specifically that take advantage of gravity. Like static back is one, where a person's back is either hunched over too much or they have a real tilt in their pelvis forward. So they have a really strong arch in their low back and all those muscles are super tight. And if you lay in static back and you just rest there, gravity is playing on you the whole time. And if your muscles can relax, there's a really nice video of this. I don't know who made it, showing the skeleton, how when you're in that position, the skeleton the back slowly lowers and gets straighter, and it provides immediate relief to someone who has these tight muscles or maybe has compressed discs, any kind of nerve issue that's going on there.
Mm-hmm. So static back is really a foundational piece of the exercises for many of the issues, many of the pain points that people are having. And you described it beautifully, laying down and having your feet at a 90-degree angle looped over a chair or a box or whatever you have to put them up on. Can you share a couple of other things? Let me think of it this way. If there's a listener out there who's curious about this and they realize that maybe they're a little rolled forward or hunched forward and they're recognizing it, what would you suggest to them as a couple of different exercises they could do to help them get back upright?
Well, without ever seeing a person, I would always recommend static back, unless they couldn't do it. And if their head was too far forward, it could be uncomfortable because when they lay back, if they have too much kyphosis or upper back rounding, it could force their back too far. So they could either lay in static back with a little bit of a pillow to prevent their neck from arching too much and causing discomfort. Gravity drop is an exercise where you stand on the edge of a stair and you hold on to two handrails next to you. And you try to stand up as straight as you can, aligning your shoulders, your hips, your knees, and your ankles. It's good to have a therapist help you, or a mirror, or somebody look at you. And you're just holding on and you're letting your weight drop your heels down. And by standing in that position for 3 or 5 minutes and just trying to relax, it can really help all the muscles in your body relax and allow your spine to realign, your hips to be where they are meant to be, which is over your knees and ankles and below your shoulders. And that, just getting that into that position can really help you feel better, because when you step out of that, your body has felt that and it will stay in that position for maybe only a few strides, but you feel it.
Yeah, I always gravity drop was like somebody just gently pulling the reins down so that you would just come right back up. As you're describing it, I haven't done it in a while, but I'm remembering how good that feels.
Mhm.
You just feel that you really feel it in your calves, like a calf stretch, and lower legs. But your whole body just relaxes into position.
Right. And actually, depending on your posture, you could feel it in different places because if you're really tight in the hip flexors and you're straightening yourself like that, you could feel a stretch even in the front of your hips, as well as your calves and your hamstrings. And yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
And then there's some exercises if people are able to move their shoulders enough. There's some really wonderful go-to exercise I like, which is just putting your arms out and rotating your arms forward or back and then backwards, and then putting your hands like this and doing this, and just standing upright and doing those two things can affect your whole body. It can help you get realigned. All that movement ripples all the way down your spine into your hips and all the way down to your ankles.
Yeah.
I can't off the fly just think of any particular ones to share other than those.
There are so many, but that's actually a great one too. I used to call this back. And I used to say especially when somebody's been sitting at their desk all day, that immediate just getting up and getting your upper body doing some little bit of movement can just send that signal to your body to get back upright.
Yeah. Yeah. And then air bench, or people call it wall sit sometimes, where you just push your back against the wall and drop into a sit. And it doesn't even have to be a 90-degree sit. It can be 110 degrees, 105 degrees. But by doing that and having your feet pointed straight ahead, aligned with your knees, and pressing your low back against the wall, resting your hands on your lap, just holding that for a minute or two, that can completely transform your whole pelvic position. And it can reduce any rotation you might have, any disparity you have in the two sides, or any elevation. And so you could walk away from that feeling like, feeling like you have something under you holding you up.
So good. So good. I haven't done these in so long, and you're reminding me. I want to make sure
Get busy.
I gotta get back on these. Yeah, they're so good, and there's so many. And obviously you talk about a lot of this in part 3 of the book and give some good suggestions on that. Do you have some other thoughts with resources though that you'd like to share? Any place that you would send people who would like to learn more about the Egoscue method or posture therapy in general?
Well, I will always recommend Pete's book, Pain Free. You can also look on YouTube and just type in Egoscue exercises, and you'll get a whole slew of examples, therapists who put them up there in teaching modes, people who are just doing them, many testimonials. PTX therapy is worth exploring. It's actually a program available to the public, but I really like the idea of working with a therapist in the beginning for sure to get the support you need. And Live Sonema, I think, has they host some stuff from Pete that's really good. They have little sample exercise programs you can do that are fun, can be very challenging, and are good.
That's great. I'll put some of that in the show notes as well. So people, if you're listening, I'll give you some of those resources.
Yeah.
And it made me think of something now. I've just lost that train of thought as I said that, though. I'll come back to it. I was thinking that, I know what it was. I was thinking that if somebody is wondering how they could find a posture therapist in their area, or now, honestly, online. I mean, you met Matt and worked with him online even before online was a thing, right? But what's the best place that you would recommend to go to for somebody who's looking for a posture therapist?
We have a website called Posture Alignment Therapists, and I think it's .com, that Katie put together, and it lists all of us. So it has our name, our business name, our address, where we're located, our phone number, and an email address. So people could look there. if you want to see a therapist in person, you would obviously want to locate one in your area or nearby. But this therapy is very effective online. We can even do it in email. If people send us pictures and we send them a menu and then they do it and send us new pictures. So it doesn't really matter where you live. You know, you can work with a therapist in Europe or if you're in the United States. It doesn't matter.
Nice.
And then the EGOSQ website has links to the therapists, and PTX therapy has a map with links to PTX therapists. So those are the three ways I can think of contacting someone.
Yeah, that's great. And what about somebody that wants to get in touch with you? First of all, let them know where the book is available because they can clearly learn more about you through the book. And then what if they're interested in finding you?
Well, the book is on Amazon. It's available in print format and Kindle format. And I'm in Washington State on the Olympic Peninsula, and my business is Posture First Exercise Therapy, and I'm based in Sequim. And my email address is grace@posture-first.com. And the rest of my contact information is on the website.
Fantastic. That's great. Grace, I could talk about this all afternoon. I just love this topic. I love it fascinates me. And I know it feels like a miracle, but it really is common sense and it can help. The most important thing is it can help. And so I'm really glad that we've had a chance to talk today and that we have your book to share so people can learn more about it. But before we finish today, I would like to have you answer the question that I ask every guest. And it has to do with the title of our podcast, which is It Just Takes One. And I'm just curious, what does that phrase, it just takes one, mean to you?
Well, if I relate it to this interview and this book and all that, I'll say that in my case, it just took my meeting Matt, to really put me on a whole different trajectory than I had been before, trying to find pain relief. And now my life is not devoted to trying to find pain relief. It's just doing the things I love to do. So it just took Matt getting me feeling better. And then, the forum and becoming a therapist, joining the forum. And then it just took Travis to introduce me to you. And it took just, essentially you, even though it's you and Greg, but you helping me get the book written, formatted, and ready for publication. And then it just took Greg to put it up there, and it just takes one. In truth, it takes an army, but the one is
at a time.
exactly one. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's why I'm always fascinated by that answer because everybody has a different one.
Mm-hmm.
But when you, in your case, meet that one, it can literally change your life.
And so you become immensely grateful to that one, even though it might be a little bit, too much. But Matt doesn't care that I'm like, oh, thank you, you got me out of pain, and so.
Yeah. It's again just such a transformative experience to get your life back through something that's very simple, very easy for somebody to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And with the right guidance and the right therapist working with you,
and people need to know that they're not broken, no matter how long they've been in pain, and what their limitations are. Their body's always trying to heal itself and take care, do what it does. If you give it the right nourishment, the hydration it needs, the rest, and some exercise, it's always working for you. So that people need to know that, and if they believe they're broken, then well, they're kind of setting themselves up to be broken or be hurting all the time. But our bodies are remarkable. They can recover from remarkable injuries and problems.
So true. So true. Miraculous. Grace, thank you so much for being on this episode today. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to work with you and to get this message out to the world. I am excited for the listeners to read the book, and please share with us your experience and connect with Grace at all the places she mentioned so that you can share with her your epiphanies and life-changing circumstances if you follow through with living pain-free.
That would be great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grace.